morning to everybody. I would like to thank, first of all, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Israel in Italy, the Wolfer Foundation, the CEO of the Wolf Foundation, Professor Dan Shechtman here, for this very interesting event. Of course, I have many reasons to thank the Wolf Foundations, especially for the prize that they gave to me. And well, now we have this conversation between myself and Professor Shechtman, which is not only a Wolf Laureate, but also a Nobel Laureate, with Marco Cattano. But we will start with some welcoming remarks. And first of all, I would like to call Alberto Quadricurzio, which is Emeritus President of the Accademia Nazionale Lincei, to speak. Thank you so much.
It doesn't work, it works now. Good morning to all. When Giorgio Parisi asked me to say some word at the beginning of this ceremony, I was really moved for three reasons. Because I consider Giorgio one of the most outstanding Italian scientists, not only living now, but in the history of Italian science. Secondly, because the Wolf Foundation is really an example, worldwide example, how to build a scientific initiative which has done choices along years, always admirable, always admirable. So, two cases which give us examples, and examples in life are important, like history. Secondly, because Accademia dei Lincei has a history which often is marked by Jewish Italian scientists, which is also important for friendship and mutual understanding. I give you just three small examples. There are much more than that, but just three small examples. One, I said yesterday to Ambassador Haidar, to whom I present my gratitude to be here, and then I talk about Professor Shechtman, is grazie a Dio Isaia Ascoli. As I said, grazie a Dio Isaia Ascoli has been in the second half of 19th century, at the beginning of last century, the most important scholar in linguistics and philological sciences in Italy, and started a school which lasts also now. Is a kind of icon of this field of research in humanities. The second example, I am always talking about Italian Jewish scientists, is Vito Volterra. Vito Volterra was a mathematician, a very, very outstanding mathematician. He was president of Lincei for 3 years between 1923, 1926, and then he was obliged to leave because the fascist regime was coming and becoming more and more hostile. So he left. Vito Volterra, in any case, remains in our memory as an example of an outstanding scholar and a person who had a full devotion to freedom. The third example, and I have to say because otherwise I am not an historian, and after all I have been in many ways working in this academy for 15 years, secretary, vice president and president, is Guido Castelnuovo. Guido Castelnuovo. Guido Castelnuovo, I would like to explain everything about Guido Castelnuovo, but unfortunately I can't do now. Has been president of Lincei between 1946 and 1952. The importance of Castelnuovo is that he rebuilt Accademia dei Lincei after the fascism. And the president of Lincei, Castelnuovo, was a very close friend of the first president of Italian Republic, Luigi Einaudi, who was vice president of this academy when he became president of the Italian Republic. This is a very important piece of the history of the Italian Republic and this academy. Einaudi nominated as first senator for life Guido Castelnuovo. As soon as he became president of the Italian Republic, he nominated Guido Castelnuovo senator for life. This means quite a lot, isn't it? President of Lincei, senator for life, nominated by the first president of the Italian Republic. And finally, but certainly not last but not least, Rita Levy Montalcini, who has been with us until her very, very respectable age of 103 years of life. She was nominated by Presidente Ciampi Senator of Life again. So, as you see, there are strict relationships between Accademia dei Lincei, Italian Republic, and Senator of Life, two Senator of Life. Having said that, very few words about our relationship now with the Israel Academy of Science and Humanities. We have an agreement of collaboration which has already organized two meetings, one in Israel in 2017 on immunology and research on cancer. The other one in 2018 in Rome on science and society, which is probably one of the themes on which Professor Shechtman and Giorgio Parisi will discuss. And so we have this good relationship with these two academies, and I hope to be able, on the basis of my role of emeritus president, who was president when the agreement started, to come to Israel at the end of August, beginning of September, for the 60th anniversary of the Israeli Academy of Art and Sciences, Humanities and Sciences. Having said that, I really admire that Professor Shechtman and the CEO of the World Foundation came here to deliver the prize to Giorgio. Is really another example which contributes to science, humanitarian scholarship, and freedom. Many, many thanks indeed. And finally, I greet quite a lot the ambassador, because Dr. Haidar, I think the pronunciation is right, knows perfectly Italian, but more than that, he knows Italian literature and Italian history. And this is a remarkable sign of friendship to our country. And friendship, in my opinion, is one fundamental element of humanity, and of course freedom. So many thanks to all and to Giorgio, who gave to me the occasion to say some word before this important event. If Giorgio allow me, and that's a kind of small maniac, I have here a book which seems to me fundamental. Is Linceographum. Linceographum are the constitution of Accademia dei Lincei. I don't really know if it's written in Latin or Italian. Well, both in Italian and in Latin. This book was written mainly by Federico Cesi, who was the founder of the Academy, but there are also comments of Galileo Galilei. Every one of us knows Galileo Galilei, and this fight for freedom of science. So I think that in this friendship of freedom, science, and humanities, we are here today, and I'm very, very moved to be, when Giorgio asked me to say some word. Many thanks to all. That's for the ambassador, that's for Professor Shechtman. I don't give the copy to Giorgio because he knows very well. And one, if I am allowed, to the CEO of the World Foundation. Money is important. I am an economist. Many thanks to all. Grazie, Giorgio.
Thank you so much, Alberto, also for your kindness to come here from Milano, which is not a so easy job to do in this period, which is better than a few months ago, but still not completely normal. So it's my pleasure to ask the Reut Inon Berman, the CEO of the Wolf Foundation, to speak.
Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Alberto Quadrio Porizio, Ambassador Rita, Professor Dan Shechtman, Professor Giorgio Parisi, all who joined us today, good morning. I'm honored and take a great pride in being this morning as the CEO of the Wolf Foundation. The Wolf Prize is awarded to scientists and artists for their achievement and contribution in the interest of humanity and friendlier relation among peoples. With this award, we salute world leaders in the field of science and art for their remarkable achievements and places human excellence as a principle of social and educational value and unlimited goal. The road to excellence begins with education. There must remain our top priority. If we are to bring change, we must achieve excellence. Excellence is the courage to think differently, to innovate, to renew, to break the boundaries of thoughts and the limitation of imagination. Excellence is a way of life. Excellence is requiring ongoing hard work, dedication, commitment, and achievements, without which it cannot be fulfilled. There is no more excellent expression of this paradigm than expressed by our 354 Wolf Prize laureates, all the best of the best from all over the globe. This excellence expressed by the people sitting in this room today. The recent year have been challenging the world over. It was the year of the pandemic. The coronavirus affected all of humanity, changed our lifestyles. On the other hand, the virus has presented us with many challenges, but on the other hand, and no less importantly, it has given us the opportunity of reconsideration. It was the year of which the whole world understood the importance of science, its power, the ability of science to invent, to develop, to give solutions, to save lives, to move the humanity forward. The entire world turns its attention to the research laboratories, to the scientists in the institutions. Scientists from all over the world came together to fight the common enemy, for the world, for the humanity. This mobilization discarded borders. The development of respiratory machines, the development of corona vaccine, within a few months, the shortest period of time which the vaccine has been developed and manufactured in human history. These are the victories of science and victories of medicine. We are proud of science and scientists. We are also proud that the newly developed vaccines are based on the breakthrough discoveries of the Wolf Prize laureates. During the past years, the Wolf Foundation has been investing a substantial amount of energy and resources in creating a wide variety of academic, social, and educational activities, utilizing the knowledge and excellence-driven personalities of our laureates to achieve one major goal: actively stating to the next generation of young scientists the future of science, the future of humanity. That kind of human activity is what we recognize and reward. This is what we would like the society to appreciate and support. This is our role models. In today's discussion, both Professor Shechtman and Professor Parisi, both are Wolf Prize laureates, will present a different aspects of their lives, their work and achievement, and their point of view concerning dealing with aspects of being scientists in the modern, and question concerning evolution and revolutions in the sciences. Turn the spotlight on the importance of science and the sake of all society. I wish to thank those who devote their time, experience, knowledge, and generosity to the scientific work every day. And thank you all who have joined us here this morning. Grazie mille.
Thank you so much, Roy. And now I would like to ask His Excellency Giorgio Parisi, which is Ambassador Israel in Italy, to say if you come here to speak. So, thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the Accademia, CEO of the Wolf Prize, Reproducibility, Professor Shechtman, Professor Parisi. Yesterday, we all witnessed this ceremony at Sapienza University in which Professor Giorgio Parisi was awarded the Wolf Prize. It was an occasion in which Israel saluted the professor and celebrated his scientific accomplishments. Professor Dan Shechtman, Nobel laureate, arrived from Israel with the member of Wolf Prize, just so he could honor him and that special event. The scientific ties between Israel and Italy are deep and expensive. In my speech yesterday, I noted the annual meeting last week that we discussed in our embassy, the bilateral research and development agreement. Over the past 20 years, 13 joint labs have been set up and about 200 joint ventures and researches have been created and funded by both governments. We have also been collaborating in the Horizon Europe program, as well as the fields of space, agriculture, water, and security, while also working together to tackle the current pandemic. The fact that we have two world-renowned scientists with us here, both of whom have a long record and a historical perspective, presents an opportunity to hear them directly and learn from them. There is no better place to do so than the National Academy of the Science here in Italy, and to see a picture of Galileo Galilei, which is the hero of my little daughter. So it's a great honor to be here. In February 2020, year and 3 months ago, we all still had hope that the West world will be spared from the virus, or at least be less impacted. But to our deep misfortune, we were wrong. Italy was the first country in the West to experience the corona crisis, and later the remaining countries, including Israel, felt it as well. Global crises come with uncertainty. In this case, there is an added mysterious element of an enemy. It is an unfamiliar virus with an exponential spread. This led to an increased sense of fear, a fear of the unknown. During biblical times, there was a point when the Israelites were left in the desert without their leader, Moses, who had left on a short mission. As newly emancipated slaves in their exodus from Egypt, they felt like kids whose father had run off. So in order to overcome this uncertainty and the separation anxiety, they created an alternative, a golden calf they could worship. They turned to false knowledge in order to find reassurance. When Moses came back and saw what had unfolded in his absence, he shattered the tablets in front of everyone. This shock therapy was designed to demonstrate the harm caused by false information and artificial substitutes. The unknown makes us feel that we are no longer masters of our own destiny. That's why people have tried to search for information and obtain knowledge, any form of knowledge. In some cases, it comes from authoritative sources, but in other cases, it is fake. People believe that if they have a grasp of something, they are safer and in control of the situation. Over the past year of the pandemic, scientists have become a hot commodity in news studios. They have been asked to make the scientific research more accessible to the public and explain the pandemic using terms that the average person would easily understand. But there was also a bad side to this. Some scientists and other authoritative figures took advantage of their status in order to belittle the threat posed by the virus, and later also tried to sow fear over the vaccines. The fears generated by the crisis led to conspiracy theories on the virus and its supposed origins. Luckily, the world did not remain complacent and soon began studying the virus while launching a race to a vaccine on multiple fronts. Here, too, science came to the rescue and scientists served as saviors. The speed of this effort, including the novel methods used by, for example, Pfizer and Moderna, created questions and fed fears that had been spread by the vaccine skeptics. As someone who has studied culture and myth, I could not resist the temptation to watch this situation and observe how the scientists were looked up as shamans or magicians who were tasked with the collective well-being of the tribe. For many in the general public, it was hard figuring out what the virus was all about, how it impacted us, and how one should look at the infection numbers or how the vaccine works. They could not understand how such treatments were developed in such a short time, as this was a matter of life and death. The scientists took to the airwaves to explain as much as they could, but television, by definition, is a medium that requires dumbing down of the discussion. Thus, for viewers, it was less about understanding the deep insights, but about trusting the authority of the scientist. The viewers told themselves that even though they may not understand what is unfolding, they trust the scientists to figure out the various questions, and that if we listen to him or her, we could be healthy and salvation would arrive. The unprecedented access to information in our era has led many to disregard simple explanation and instead search for more comprehensive information. In doing so, people have become agents of knowledge for their social circles. Israel acted swiftly by getting vaccines. In mid-December, just last December, the massive vaccination drive began in Israel. I was back in Israel not long ago. If you go there, you will get the sense that the corona emergency has passed. It turns out that the vaccine works. The public got a live demonstration on science's practical implications on our life. And yet, there are still many questions. Ironically, the massive quantity of information that we have absorbed over the past year has taught us just how little we know. Henri Poincaré, the French philosopher and physicist, once said, interesting phrase, "Science is built on facts, the way a house is built of bricks, but an accumulation of facts is no more science than a pile of bricks is a house." In other words, facts require an explanation, analysis, and interpretation. That means we, the lay people, the average people, need you, the scientists. Just like the lost Dante needed Virgilius, to guide him in the forest, we look upon you to help us navigate through the convoluted maze we live in. So, in the name of the State of Israel, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Professor Shechtman for coming here. I want to thank Reut for bringing the Wolf Prize to Italy. And I wish all of us here a productive discussion. Thank you. Grazie mille.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. So I would like to call Professor Danny Shechtman to sit there. And Marco, where are you? I think that you are supposed to stand over there. If you want a chair.
No, I'm okay. I will be standing. I'm so young, Giorgio, you know. No, I'm just joking. So first of all, let me thank Giorgio Parisi, first of all, and the Accademia dei Lincei, the World Foundation, and the Embassy of Israel for asking me to moderate this exciting debate between two very prominent scientists. Both were awarded the Wolf Prize, and Dan Shechtman also had a Nobel Prize in 2011, so it is 10 years ago exactly. Right. We are celebrating this Nobel Prize as well, and for the discovery of quasi-crystals, is it? And well, we should debate, thanks to the ambassador, because I think his speech was very interesting and was introducing our debate today, because, well, we should discuss why we should trust science. But I will make a step back at the beginning, because science is something that has evolved for centuries. And, well, the word scientist was born in 1833, and the man who defined first a scientist, because before the scientists were called natural philosophers, was William Whewell, a theologist, philosopher, and historian of science. So the first question, Professor Shechtman, I will start with you. The first question is, what is science? How do we define science now? What is the process of scientific knowledge?
Okay, I don't think that the definition of science has been changed over the years, although science itself looks different today than it was years ago. Let me start by saying the following. Science progresses on two avenues. One is evolution, the other one is revolution. Evolution means we build, step by step, the progress of science. And the distance between science and technology today is very little. And a lot of science is done in companies that develop technology. The science that progresses slowly, step by step, the evolution of science is predictable. We can guess quite wisely what is going to happen in future years. For instance, I'll give you a couple of examples. We can say today that the cars that we drive today will be different in the future. They will be electric cars. All of them will be electric cars. How do we know? Because the revolution has started already. We know that. Another example, we can say that electricity will be produced by sun energy and wind energy and so on. How do we know? It already started. And this is the right direction. This avenue of evolution of science clearly is predictable. The other avenue is scientific revolution. Something happens that was not expected before. A paradigm shift in crystallography, a paradigm shift in physics, a paradigm shift in mathematics. This is not predictable, and these revolutionary discoveries shape the future of science. This is the foundation on which the development of science progresses. It is not predictable. We cannot predict what will be discovered tomorrow. We don't know. But these are the Wolf Prizes. These are the Nobel Prizes. These are the prizes that are given for something extraordinary that was not expected. A better understanding of the world, like Professor Parisi's, or a discovery of quasicrystals, which I brought to the scene. So the main difference between science of the past and science today, in my opinion, is the speed in which revolutionary discovery is adopted to the real world and to products. And maybe we can discuss it later.
Of course, we will. Thank you, Professor Shechtman. Giorgio Parisi. Well, the process in which science evolves and the dynamics of science discovery is well known and is, I would say, very well described by the work of Galileo Galilei. So we are here in the Accademia dei Lincei. Why do you think we should keep 400 years later to trust the process that brings us to new knowledge?
Well, I think that a few reasons for which we should trust science. First of all, science is a public enterprise. I mean, there are no secrets in science. What happens as scientists do publish what they find. Other scientists can trust, other scientists read what people have said, try to reproduce, and we have the formation of a consensus in science. So this is something that people do not really understand outside the scientific world, because they say sometimes they say there was one scientific paper saying that, but however, one scientific paper is not makes a consensus on science. What is important in science is the formation of a consensus by many people that agrees. Most of them, of course, you cannot have 100% of people agree, but you have a formation of a consensus that may take, for things that are not more or less predictable, a few years. It may take 10, 20 years in case of stronger evolution. For example, on quantum mechanics, it took a lot of time to be people to agree on quantum mechanics, on Einstein's idea on quantum mechanics. Also, recently, the discovery of Professor Shechtman on quasi-crystal, it took a lot of time because there were many famous chemistry that were competing against quasi-crystal. For example, let me remember Pauling, that was a stellar chemist, but he was against quasi-crystal. So some evolutions takes a lot of time to be accepted. And the other thing that is quite important is, for instance, the reproducibility. It means I make an experiment here, someone makes the same experiment in California, someone makes the same experiment in South Africa or in Australia, and the results are the same. So there is, so it's something that, of course, you may have some paper that is wrong, someone that is just make mistakes or fraud, but with time fraud disappears, they cannot be checked, and that is quite important. The other thing that is crucial in science is that science, as far as is possible, knows its own limits. And also one thing that is very important in science is the concept of accuracy. For example, in scientific paper, we speak about statistical errors, we say confidence level, and so on. And therefore, we have, if you want, we have some kind of introspection of ourselves, and we automatically declare how much our results are reliable.
Thank you, Giorgio. There's something very interesting in both your answers. First of all, Professor Shechtman, Giorgio mentioned the confidence intervals in science. I usually say that the most powerful tool of science is that within its predictions, it gives us an incredible tool, which is the error confidence, the measure of the uncertainty of its results. Do you think that many people believe that science should give answers that are something like truth instead of confidence intervals? I had, during this year of the pandemic, the idea that many people thought that science should give certain answers. While science is a measure of uncertainty sometimes, do you think that people should be more educated about these things?
Well, in some fields, uncertainty is built in. In other fields of science, this is not the case. The proof is there. There may be some objection, like in my case with Linus Pauling, as Professor Parisi said, but that objection died after a while, simply because it didn't have any basis. You cannot say it's not in the books, that therefore it's not right. You cannot say that. Science will not progress if this is the case. Okay. Most of the public does not understand science, and it is very important that they trust scientists. And in the recent pandemic that the ambassador has mentioned and you have mentioned, it was clear that, that everybody has to be get the vaccine and stop spreading the pandemic. But not everybody agreed. And some people suspect and do not believe that what scientists are saying is correct. And it is our role, or the role of scientists, to talk to the people in a language that they understand so that they will be convinced that, hey, this is something we can trust. And this is our job to do, because nobody else can do it for us. We have to convince people that science is correct, and we have to convince people that they should trust us in what they say. I think that last year pandemic was a perfect example for many things, including the fact that most people did accept what scientists did and the solution they brought about, and some people did not. And those people were harmed, and that is bad. People should believe in science, and it's our role to convince them. And this is why academies of sciences should talk not only to scientists, to the people. Hey, these are your true knowledge leaders. Believe in them, they are correct. And here in this place, in the academy, we should take it as one of our main jobs to convince the public that they should believe in what we say.
Thank you. But at the same time, I would like to ask Giorgio Parisi. During this year, we had scientists facing a new phenomenon. And in front of this new phenomenon, scientists had sometimes different opinions. I would say virologists, immunologists, epidemiologists faced each other and debated the nature of the virus, the way the epidemics would evolve, and so on. But well, you mentioned the refusal of Linus Pauling, twice Nobel Prize, let's remember, of the quasi-crystals. I will mention the debates between Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein about quantum mechanics. But these debates were internal to the scientific community, while the 2020 debate on the coronavirus was on social networks. So, many people who never were used to face this kind of debates thought, well, the scientific community doesn't give us answers. Do you think that something was wrong in this public exchange between scientists, or that something should have worked in a different way?
Yes, you are absolutely right. The problem is that science takes some time. Probably if we should do nowadays the debate on the same questions that were debated 1 year ago, most of the people would agree on the point. The point is that scientists are normally, I mean, it's very difficult that when you have a new phenomenon, scientists do agree one with the other one. I remember, for example, nearly 50 years ago, when a new particle, the psi particle, was discovered, there were 10 different theories. 9 of them in a few days, the people published in a few weeks, maybe published 10 different theories about the psi particle. One of them was right, the all other 9 were wrong. And also theories published by few Nobel Prizes were wrong. So it's clear that there was, at the moment, if you would have a debate on the psi particle on televisions, you say scientists do not agree at all, but after 2 months, 3 months, I would say, with a new experimental result, there was reached more or less an agreement on what it was. Therefore, people do not realize, I mean, they are not exposed to the reaction of scientists to a new phenomenon. And what happens is that scientists do not agree. Usually they strongly debate, and after some time you get a new experiment, you do some new argument, you start to reflect about, and slowly the people get convinced. And indeed, also I think that one of the problems of television was that the television was quite happy if the scientists will start to shout one towards the other one, because this was doing some audience. It's clearly that if you have to have two scientists that are going to do a debate on television, the first things that you should do before starting the program, that the two scientists see one with the other one, debate among themselves for 1 hour, and after they try to reach some kind of agreement, and they speak out. However, this would not be interesting from the point of view audience, and therefore that would be the natural thing to be done if you want to have some kind of agreement on agreement to discuss it before, because otherwise on television it's clear that it's very difficult to discuss, because someone that speaks more louder than the other one, and also to have to see scientists that try to shut up the other one is not a very nice type of behavior, and so on. Therefore, it is just something which has different kind of reasons. And also, one of the things that is a very serious problem, at least in Italy, that we had very few epidemiologists in Italy. We had a good epidemiology, but epidemiology in Italy was considered not an important thing, because epidemic is something that happens elsewhere. Why should we care to have a professor of epidemiology at our university? It's not something so interesting, because real epidemics is in Africa, is in India, and so on. We are safe, and therefore epidemiology was. We had excellent epidemiologists, but they are few. We don't have a very strong school in all universities and so on. So that was also one problem that we had.
I think, Professor Shechtman, that there is also another issue, which is the social issue. Let's say the debate about the JPC particle discovery was not that exciting for the general public. I mean, nobody cared about it. While in the middle of a pandemic, the scientific debate, a public scientific debate, is involving each of us. So, do you think that this hard debate between some scientists and probably the use of some of the statements of the scientists by the politics has created some confusion in the general public?
Yes, I think that the general public should understand the importance of science, and we can talk to the public by giving them examples that they know. Let me give you some examples like this. When Fleming discovered penicillin, the year was 1928. Clearly, penicillin saved millions of lives ever since then. But penicillin was not available very soon to the public. It took 17 years, until 1945, that the United States managed to produce large enough quantities of penicillin so that it is available to the public. And now, Everybody realized, hey, penicillin and antibiotics saves life. It's very important. This is example number one. You can take to the public and tell them the following. When Bardeen and his colleagues invented the transistor, they did not expect what will happen, but our lives are based now on the transistor, on the discovery of the transistor. Example number 3, the internet. When ARPA developed the internet for communicating within the United States different branches, they did not expect what happens today, that everybody is linked to the internet. People understand that. People understand penicillin. People know what is a transistor, more or less. People use the internet. And this is all based on very fundamental science. You can tell the people, here are some examples of what the scientists brought up, what the scientists invented, and now, hey, you have a cell phone? You can talk to somebody, and in fact for free around the world, and you can imagine that your call goes to a satellite and comes down on the other side of the world, and it takes a fraction of a second. This is science. Scientists did all this, all right? So science is all over your life, and you should appreciate it. I think these are examples that people understand, and we can talk to them about it.
There's an example, you remember me. Well, I always say that at the end of the years 10 of last century, 1915, between 1915 and 1920, Albert Einstein elaborated the theory of stimulated emission of radiation. And it took 40 years to show in towns to build the first laser. Now we have lasers everywhere. They read our things in the shops. We have lasers to read our music and to listen to music. So it took about 1 century before the theory went to a complete and full application of the tools that it allowed. But well, I know that people understand, but at the same time, Giorgio Parisi, there is an enormous amount of skepticism towards science. There is an enormous amount of distrust. We have a lot of no vax, no mask, and so on. Why do you think there is so much distrust? Even if people just write their own things on Twitter and Facebook that are results of what science means for us?
Well, I think this is a quite complex problem. And I think that would be a wonderful way. I think that if we are able to understand why exactly, because we could correct them. I have a few ideas. One of them that was put forward a long time ago by my good friend Marco Deramo, that sometimes when people are doing a scientific communication, they present the science like magic, in the sense that they say, well, I do this one, I do that one, and after comes the other things. They do not explain why. And of course, magic is just the fact that you have two objects to something that happens that is not commensurate with action. You move your wand and a cucumber becomes something else, or a frog becomes a principle, a prince. So this is one thing. The other thing, I think that is, therefore, if the science looks like a pseudo-magic stuff, people would prefer the original one, real magic, because at least it is the original stuff, not some imitation or magic. Well, the other things is more somewhat dramatic. I would say that there is, for many reasons that we can understand, there is some type of skepticism in the future. I mean, people realize that there are many reasons to be worried about the future. And, for example, I mean, forget the pandemic, but you can think the problem of pollution from one side. You have a global warming. You have the problem of end of resources like oil and things like that. So people are not convinced anymore that their children, their grandchildren will have a better life than themselves. While in the past everybody was convinced of the I mean, in the past, I mean, starting from the end of the 19th century, or maybe before, that you have a great progress and the life in the future will be better, people are not so convinced. They found more pessimistic. Maybe they are wrong, but there is some widespread pessimism. And now you remember that when the things were going in a very progressive way, people said that it was the merit of science, all these things that were improving. Now that the fact that people have the feeling, I mean, I don't want to say this is true or not, but at least they have the feelings that things are not going well for the future, now science is responsible. Because in the same way that was had the merit of things going well, now it has some kind, of course I do not agree, because science is just what we need to avoid this crisis. But some people have the tendency to believe that there is fault of science, and therefore they do not believe anymore in science. And also science, the fact that science and technology start to go so much together, they start not to trust science because they fear that they may be controlled by economic interest, that the scientists are not fair, they will study all what is interested from the economy. If they something that against economy, they will not do, and so on. And so there's all this type of things that come together from different directions, and that makes this mistrust on science quite strong. And also let me add one political point, which while in the past the left was the one that was more trusting science, and because it was the revolution, I mean, let me remember Lenin that was saying that the socialism or something, I think socialism in Soviet Union will be the power of the Soviet and electrification. So that will be socialism. And nowadays, a lot of people left, also in the left, quite there is criticism of science just because they do not trust anymore the independence on science and so on. So it's a quite complex
Well, I totally agree that it's a quite complex issue. And I want to ask Professor Shechtman, I just marked a couple of things. First of all, do you think it depends, this kind of mistrust depends also on the way sciences are taught at school in some way? Not to say the universities, but before, during the primary and secondary schools. And the second thing is, do you think that the distrust of in science can have something to do with the fact that science is being seen like a kind of institution? Let's say it is paired to politics somehow, and people distrust politics, they distrust all the institutions, so science is seen in this way.
Okay, so there are several issues here that that you brought up. I will try to relate to these issues. First of all, I would like to respond to Professor Parisi. Today, we can talk to the public. We, the community of scientists, academies, university, can talk and should talk to the public and show them that in the future, our lives will be better. And we have proof that this is the case. And let me just give you one example that everybody will understand. People died from heart attacks before with huge numbers. Heart attacks today is a problem that is basically controlled. While in the past, if you have blocked arteries to the heart and you had the lack of being treated, they opened your chest like that, and this is called open heart surgery. It's a very dramatic procedure. They took arteries from your legs and implanted it there. Getting out of the problem may take half a year. Today, with the invention of stents, it's a procedure of 1 hour. Hey, small injection here to numb this place. They bring the stent to the heart, inflate, implant it there, get out. 1 hour, you can go home now. Dramatic change, very dramatic change. And people understand that. Young people understand that their father or grandfather was saved and doesn't have heart attack, and it was something like that. We can explain it, and there are good examples. I will not bring more examples for sake of time. As for your other question, we need to bring the basic knowledge of science to young people as early as possible. Every country needs more scientists, more engineers, because modern world is built on scientists and engineers. Of course, art, poetry, of course. But as far as the basic structure of country is based on science and engineering. How can we convince young people that science is wonderful? I have done something about it in Israel. I promoted and created science education in a very early age. What age? 5 years old. What kind of science? Real science. Real science in kindergartens. I have done it in our city, Haifa, with the mayor of Haifa, and we created a science program to 5 years old in 60 kindergartens. And one of the results was a special science kindergarten. One building, 90 students, age 5, from the community, not special children, from the community, and they study science, and they have a laboratory in the kindergarten. And then when you enter the laboratory, you think that you're in a university. But you look down, and there are 10 young children sitting around round table, laboratory coats, small ones, and they perform experiments, and the guide is a lady who has masters in chemistry. She can teach in high school. She prefers to teach young children. It's possible. And I can tell you that I bring delegations from all over the world to look at their kindergarten and try to tell them, copy it. It will be very good for your country. Right? This is in Haifa, in my hometown. If you want to create a delegation, I will do it for you. All right? Just come and show it and copy it. And I can tell you that several countries in the world copied it and created tens of such kindergartens. And it's very good. I want to mention one more thing that is not related directly to science, but maybe side of it. Not all science is performed in universities today. A lot of it has been and is performed in companies. Hey, Moderna and Pfizer, within months, created something unbelievable. They produce vaccines, which are basically messenger RNA molecules, and they build these molecules from scratch, atom by atom, and provide billions of vaccines to the world community. Unprecedented process. Of course, the basic knowledge came from universities, and they received prizes for it, including the Nobel Prize. But the actual development based on that science is done by companies. Hey, the transistor was not invented by university, by Bardeen, works for Bell Laboratories. Well, it's a company. and so on. Science is done both university and in companies, and the main thing is not only should we talk to the people, we can bring them excellent examples from their lives, okay? Not a pie in the sky. Heart attack, everybody understands what heart attack is, and everybody understands the solution. So life will be better, people will live longer. Every year, people live longer than in the previous year. We live longer than our fathers and forefathers. And it will continue. People will live to be 120, people will live to be 150 years old. Not in our lifetime, maybe. In the future, young people, like our CEO, may live 150 years. So there is hope in science. There is bright future based on science. And we should talk to the people, we, academies, universities, not only talk to our people, talk to the public. It's very important, it's our role.
Thank you, Professor Shechtman. Just a last question to Professor Parisi before asking if there are some questions from the attendance. But Giorgio, there are two small things I want to ask you. Well, one is small, the other one is big. First of all, do you think, Professor Shechtman mentioned heart surgery. Do you think that, mostly in medicine, we are used to the benefits that science gave us, so we don't ask anymore how science works. We just know, well, it works, just let me have my surgery and that's it. Because, well, we just should think that 150 years ago they have no anesthetics, for instance. And the second thing is how to fight the distrust. How to fight the distrust in science.
With this...
No, just, it's two different things. One is if you think that we are
yes,
used...
The first one and
yes,
the second?
And the second is how to fight the distrust in science.
Okay.
Which could require a couple of hours, probably.
Well, let me say first of all something that I think that Professor Shechtman's idea that we should do in kindergarten science is a wonderful idea. So I think that I will try to organize some visit from Italy, and we will be pleased. Of course, it's clear that we, as Academy of Science, we do not run kindergartens, but we have to ask to the city, I think, mayor, that will be elected in a few months, if something of this kind could be possible. Now, it's clear that people, it's a very strange thing. So people become accustomed very quickly to the benefit of science. And they forgot, I mean, it's just a phone call. I mean, the amount of science that in this mobile objects is incredible. I mean, the number of, this object has bigger computing power of computers 30 years ago, one of them. So it's something that is completely incredible. The amount of science that has been needed to construct from liquid crystal, special glasses, because these glasses that are here that normally do not break are what people call gorilla glasses, that also a lot of science was needed to construct them. So people forget, people usually forget the fact that smallpox was blocked, polio, and so on, all illnesses that were completely eliminated by vaccination. There's all benefit of science, and they think of that at least something has been discovered, the discovery was simple, and so on. And therefore, it's something that we should remember to people how it was difficult to discover, and how much persistence, the same persistence that the ambassador was speaking yesterday in the Sapienza, was needed to do this type of discovery. And that is something that we should do. and it's clear that it's our duty as academy to speak to the public, and that we are trying to do. We have a program for schools. However, most of our efforts have been concentrated for the moment in high school, but it's clear that we should expand these things to starting from smaller children as suggested by Professor. And I think that we should do this effort. I think the school is the most crucial point. And of course, we should also think the program, the scientific program of school. I mean, I think that they are not so good because people try to learn something, and but they try to give some experience of different things, but that is not enough. And I think that, for example, let me say something that may shock you, that, for example, the problem that about doing multiplication in school. Of course, everybody learns how to do a multiplication or a division, to do arithmetics, but they do not learn when they should do arithmetics. And therefore they are not, when someone is telling you something, they do not do the simple multiplication or division they should have done. For example, if someone tells you that there has been some amount of wheat, for example, that arrives with a container, and they say that the number of tons is 10 million tons in a container, they do not compute the volume of 10 million tons to compare to the one of a ship. No, they realize that 10 million tons of wheat to Italy would be 2 tons for an inhabitant, which would be too much. And therefore it's clear that numbers, there is the idea that numbers are rhetorical stuff, that you don't need to do division, multiplication, and so on to understand, and that is something that is missing. So what is missing essentially is how to apply also very simple things in science, like arithmetics, to everyday life. Because if people start to think in everyday life with scientific concept, try to explain, to realize in everyday life that what happens is related to science, they will start to be confident in science because themselves they trust science. And therefore I think that we should do a very strong effort to have people to study science, but in a different way. Also, for example, what would be important is to have some people read how a scientific paper is written, what it contains, and so on. Therefore, it's a different way to think about science. It's something that we have to do, because otherwise we may have, if we do not convince the general public of the utility of science, and we start to lose confidence in science, of course there will be many people that have confidence in science, but not everybody. If the number of people that does not have confidence in science is going to increase, there will be a disaster. And I think that nowadays our duty as a scientist academy is to fight against these things in some way, that we have to invent. Of course, we don't know exactly how to do, but I think that this is something that is extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Parisi, and thank you for mentioning a mobile phone, because I suddenly realized that every time we take our phone, probably we are handling half a dozen Nobel Prizes, I mean, or something like that. But anyway, I wanted to ask if there are questions from the attendants. Okay, thank you. Oh, first, the ambassador. We have a question from the room.
Prego,
Please.
Professore Spelto.
So thank you for both, for this interesting. I think that all of us would be willing to sit here hours and listen to you. Professor Shechtman, Professor Parisi, sitting next to the picture of Galileo Galilei, for me, it's in this academy, it's very interesting. So, Raoult also told me to ask also this question, because when Professor Shechtman mentioned the school garden, the kindergarten, scientific kindergarten, first of all, it's a great idea that I think I just wrote to my diplomat here, my staff, to arrange, we hope, to arrange a tour to Israel with Italian to learn about this scientific kindergarten that Professor Shechtman mentioned. But my question to both of you is, what do you think Israel and Italy should do more in this, in promoting the science, in promoting this question that we just mentioned? How can we make more progress when we join together, Israel and Italy, in this historical effort? Thank you.
Okay. Number one, both Italy and Israel have very good scientific communities, and certainly there are collaborations, not only within Italy and Israel directly, but also through the European community. We meet in the ESRF, which is the synchrotron in Grenoble, and there are many collaborations there. We meet in other large facilities in Europe. I will not go through all of them. And we meet in the International Telescope in South America. So the foundation is there. In order to create more collaboration, it's in the hands of politicians to provide funds for this. So if there is a binational fund between Israel and Italy with ample amount of money to support mutual visits and to support joint projects, then it will be done. Israeli scientists like Italian scientists, I think it's vice versa. This can be done, but the budget must come from the politicians, from the countries to the academies, and from there it will work. I see no problem in it, just proper funding.
Well, one point that I think that is important is to realize that Italy and Israel are somewhat different. I mean, they have the organization, the organization universities, the organization of school and so on, in some sense the organization of society is different. For example, one example that was mentioned before was the scientific kindergarten that we don't have at all in Italy. The other things that I've been quite impressed is by the ability of people, Israeli scientists, to produce patents that are also very important. I remember that I spoke with the president of Weizmann that told me that I think that 1/3 of the budget or something like that was coming from patent. And it's clear that what we need, I think that what we miss in Italy is not the ingenuity to have a patent, but all this kind of organization that should be in university and also the ability of bringing the patent to industry and so on. Probably we have other abilities in Italy that they are not in Israel. I don't know, but I guess that there should be someone. And I don't know enough Israeli society, so I think that what will be important is that we understand the difference and try to get some help, some information, some exchange on this particular point on which one is more expert than the other one. Because I think that we should profit it's quite crucial that in our life we profit of other people's experience. I mean, science has been built on other scientists' experience, and I think that also this can be done between Italy and Israel.
Thank you. I think that Professor Quadriocurse wanted to say something. The other side? Okay.
As I said before, I am an economist. And an economist doesn't know which kind of scientist he is. Sometimes we call economic science, sometimes we call political economy, sometimes we call economic policies, and all these different title and substance. In economics, radical changes in technology have enormous effects from society, to politics, to everywhere. And these radical changes often are, as you said, discontinuities, not just evolution, discontinuities. And it takes some time after radical change to adopt the behavior of people, but also policies, more than the behavior of people, because policies have a kind of inertia. So that's a real problem. And I give you 2 examples. Many economists thought that the application of mathematics to economic problems would solve any kind of problem. There is a model, which is one of the most important models, written by John von Neumann, a model of dynamic general equilibrium, which is really very important. But when a discontinuity came into, the model couldn't immediately put inside the discontinuity, just to give you an example. So economics is really a strange science on which, or science, I don't know if it is a science, anyhow, political science, economic science, social science is something strong, something difficult to understand what it is, economic, but it is very important. So I think it would be very, very important, the collaboration between science, technology, and economics, and of course society and all these things. Very, very important. And I think we have not done enough up to now for this kind of collaboration. Science, technology, society, through economics. So what do you think? It would be possible to improve this kind of collaboration? Do you believe that mathematics might solve any economic problem? I don't believe. But then sometime my professor said that the worst mathematician was the best economist utilizing mathematics, which means that economists weren't enough able to utilize mathematics, not to forecast the future, because it's impossible to forecast the future, but to put into the models the discontinuities. That's just a comment, but if you might give me some light, thank you very much.
I would gladly comment on that.
Of course.
So I have several comments. Number one, I think that if economists are so clever, why some countries are so poor? That's comment number one. Comment number two, it's not the mathematics, it's the psychology. If you understand psychology of the people, it is much better than understanding the mathematics. Mathematics tells you what happened before. Psychology may lead you to solutions in the future. That's just the comment number one. Comment number two, in order to affect the economy of a country, starting with innovation, you have to have the middleman. And the middleman, or the middlewoman, is the technological entrepreneur. And I invite you to Israel to see how these things work. In Israel, somehow, we are good at that. And we are good at that for several reasons. Number one, we have good scientists and good technologists, but also Italy have the same thing. No, I don't know the details, but I assume so. But we have an entrepreneurial spirit in the country, and that shows very well. Israel has a huge number of startups, and many of them succeed. And this is based on several things. Number one, we dare. Number two, we have no fear of failure. Like in some countries, mainly in the Far East, Japan, South Korea. Failure there is a shame on you. It's a shame on your family. People will not dare taking risks because they may fail. And this is bad. What I tell them when I go to lecture there, failure, okay, start again. It's okay to fail. Many fail. Start again, next time you'll have a better chance. Technological entrepreneurship is the link between the discovery, between the scientific explanation, and the product. And the product is the economy. We should teach technological entrepreneurship. I do that in my university, the Technion. I have started it 35 years ago. It was the largest Technion class ever. 600 students in my class, every semester. And by now I have retired, so somebody else continues it. 35 years of the same class, done the same way. By now I have more than 10,000 engineers and scientists in Israel that took my class. 25% of them were involved in startups. Teach technological entrepreneurship. It can be done in every university, certainly technical universities. You should start teaching technological entrepreneurship in high schools. Young people, implant the bug of entrepreneurship in their minds. Once they grow up, once they complete their studies, they should think about not working for an organization, but rather opening their own startup. You can teach how to do that. I can tell you all the details about my class. Smashing success. This class was an amazing success. I personally have something to do with the fact that Israel is a startup nation. 35 years of teaching the same class. More than 10,000 engineers and scientists graduated from that class. So things can be done. And you know what? A single person can do it. I started a kindergarten. I started this class because it's important for the country. You can do that. Everybody can do that. I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to consult with me if you want. For free, of course. I will show you how I do it. Just copy it. Technological entrepreneurship. This is the link between the innovation and the product. Italy has great industry. I myself had a Alfa Romeo 164 car. Alfa Romeo 164 is the large one. I had it for more than 10 years. And then I donated the car to a school of mechanics. because the engine there is fantastic, okay? And this is Italian technology, okay? Lamborghini and this stuff come from here. So you can do great stuff. And you want more people to become scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. Teach it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shechtman. I guess we can accept just one question from the attendance, if it's possible. Not anymore? Okay, thank you. Giorgio wanted to say something, sorry.
Yes, I fully agree with what the suggestion of Professor Shechtman and that we should do something here, but concerning the details of a question by Alberto Quadrucurcio, the problem is that it's not so much a photo mathematics, but it's the way that you use mathematics. And I would say that if you want to, the point is that mathematics is used to construct model. The idea you have something that happened, you construct a model, and after you use mathematics to solve, to study the model. Now it's clear that in these things, mathematics is a tool. The important things is how you model, what you model. Now it's quite easy to model rational behavior, because rational behavior is something that you can compute, it's something that you can predict, and so on. Fortunately or unfortunately, humans are not always rational. And there is a lot of irrationality in the economics, and it's clear that now to modeling in a mathematical way irrationality is something that is much more difficult. But on the other hand, if you take out irrational behavior from economics, you get something that may work for a short time, but when you say that you have some shock, some innovations and change, people do not know everything. Everybody will think in a different way. The behavior will be no more rational, and models that are based on rationality are bounded to fail.
Thank you, Professor Parisi. You, I don't know if inadvertently or not, mentioned another Israeli Nobel Prize, in fact, Daniel Kahneman, I would say, with the theory of irrational decisions in economics. So thank you both. Thank you, Professor Shechtman. Thank you, Giorgio Parisi. And again, congratulations for your Wolf Prize. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. And have a nice day. Thank you.